You can't even count how many million pornographic websites there are. When a society is abandoned by God, it operates out of its own perverse sexual passion without restraint. You can go back to the 60s and the sexual revolution of the Flower Children or Hugh Hefner in the Playboy world. And it has gone like a flood since then. It is characterized by, as you look at verse 24, lust coming from within inside. As Jesus said, what comes out of the heart of a man is what defiles him. Leading to impurity, this means sexual impurity, and to the dishonoring of their bodies. The heart is wicked, and the bodies demonstrate it. The body follows the heart. Lust conceives in the heart, James says, and brings forth sin, and sin brings forth death. So the first thing that you look for in a society, if you're trying to discern whether God has abandoned that society, is whether or not that society has gone through a sexual revolution so that illicit sex, adultery, every form of immorality is accepted as normal in that society. And we're there. The second step in the progression, verse 26, God gave them over not just to passions that are explicable because they're men and women, but to inexplicable, degrading passions. For their women exchange the natural function for that which is unnatural. You know a society has been abandoned by God when it celebrates lesbian sex. God has given them over. Gross affections, unnatural, unthinkable. So you follow a sexual revolution with a homosexual revolution. And homosexuality becomes normalized. Verse 27 adds the male part. In the same way, the men abandoned the natural function of the women, burned in their desire toward one another. And by the way, it is a burning that is just hard to comprehend. There was a man named Halpern who was the coroner for the city of New York. And he did, I think it was 26 or 28,000 autopsies in his day. He said, we could look at a corpse that had been murdered and tell you whether a homosexual killed that person by the multiple wounds. He's not a Christian. He was a Jewish guy, and he just said there's something about the passions of that kind of involvement that are not explicable. But interestingly enough, the Holy Spirit puts the women first here and the men after. Why? The Holy Spirit refers first to the degradation of women because they're usually the last to be affected in the decay of morals because their hearts are so naturally inclined toward a husband and toward the responsibility of nurturing children. But when they lead the parade, God has removed his restraint. And the amazing thing of it is this, verse 27. The men abandoning the natural function of the women, burning in their desire toward one another, men with men committing indecent acts, and receiving in their own persons the due penalty of their error. Right into this wrath of abandonment comes the wrath, the consequential wrath. And even though it generates venereal disease and AIDS, they keep doing it. This is what step 2 looks like. And we know this has come like a flood. But it's not the final step. The final step comes in verse 28. Middle of verse 28. God gave them over to a depraved mind. Now, the version of the Bible you may have, I'm reading the New American Standard, might have a different translation for depraved. So let me tell you what the word means. Non-functional. Doesn't work. Useless. Can't think. Can't reason. Can't comprehend. And you look at this world and you say, rampant sexual immorality. Out of control. Destroying people willy-nilly. Even in the church. Even in the leadership of the church. Homosexuality. Same thing. Rampant. Out of control. Demanding to be accepted as normal. And the society rushing to affirm that acceptance. Isn't there anybody in the system who would stand up and call this what it really is? A massive moral disaster. Can't they see it? Can't they figure it out? No. No. 1 Corinthians 1 says, man by wisdom knew not God. Human wisdom just on its own doesn't get there. Then you add that the God of this world has blinded the minds of them that do not believe, and you've got a compounding blindness. And then you add the fact that they are blinded by virtue of the sweeping, dominating elements of their culture, and you're just not going to get anybody to rise up and take that position and have people rally around it. You're going to have more people in leadership in the country outing themselves as homosexuals. If you think you've seen a lot of that, you haven't seen any of it yet. As it becomes more and more accepted. A depraved mind in the original language is one that's tested and found useless, therefore disqualified for its intended use. The reasoning faculty has been corrupted by the influences that surround it. MTV did a survey on morality. Boy, there's a switch. And they took, it took the Middle Ages idea of the 7 deadly sins. Lust, greed, all those things. And they surveyed their audience about what they thought about that. And basically they thought all those things were virtues. They thought they were all virtues. Yeah. And when that happens, and your entire sense of morality is warped, then your conscience is ill-informed, and it doesn't function. So you have unconscionable behavior. And then you laugh at the Jerry Springer show, instead of falling on your face and weeping at the aberrations. A depraved mind, reasoning faculty so corrupt that it must be rejected as non-functioning. And as a result of that, what happens? God gave them over, verse 28, to a depraved mind. So, as a result, they do the things that are not what? Proper, fitting, sensible, reasonable. What do? They're filled with all unrighteousness, wickedness, greed, envy, murder, strife, deceit, malice. What's that? That's the nightly news. It's the local newspaper. Slanderers, haters of God, and on and on and on and on it goes. They're unconscionable. Conscience can only function. Conscience is a skylight, okay? Conscience is a device that reacts to your moral code. If you're a Muslim, conscience tells you to blow up infidels. Because conscience is not a set of moral laws. It's not a set of moral rules. It's a mechanism like pain. Pain is a mechanism God gave you that responds to your physical condition. It says to you, something's wrong with your body. Pain is simply the device that tells you that, and it's a good thing, isn't it? It's a good thing, because it tells you got a problem with your body you need to deal with. That's what conscience is. It's a mechanism God gave you that accuses you or excuses you, Romans 2 says, but only functions if it is morally informed accurately.